Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell destroyed people's lives, and years later, when they're either no longer alive or behind bars, they are still destroying, right now, our entire government. Today we're taking a deeper look into how the government is fracturing, and even our judicial system falling apart. This is not meant to be a political conversation within this video. It just happens to have a few politicians in the conversation. Let's dive into this one with an open mind.
So you already know this case is messy, and it is. But here's what's interesting about it. There are two very different ways to read what just happened, and depending on which one is true, it changes everything. The first reading. Bondi actually had something. She had names, real names. Names of people connected to Epstein's network. And somebody, maybe Trump, maybe someone above Trump, decided they didn't want those names coming out under oath. So they pulled her before she could talk.
Because, if you didn't know, she was recently fired and is no longer working.
The second reading. Bondi never had anything. She made things up, embarrassed Trump, and he got sick of the circus. So she got fired for being bad at the job, not because she knew too much. By the time this video is done, you'll have everything you need to decide which one you believe.
Let's stop here for a second. And at this point in the video, with nothing being presented, do you believe either of those are factual?
And Joe Rogan, he had already picked a side months before any of this happened. We'll get to that. Real quick, before we get into all of it, let's make sure everyone's on the same page, because there's a lot of names and a lot of moving parts here. So if you don't know who Pam is, well, Pam Bondi is the former Attorney General of Florida. She's been in Trump's circle for years. And when Trump needed a new Attorney General for his second term, she wasn't even his first choice. He wanted Matt Gaetz. But Gaetz had too much baggage, so that fell through. Bondi stepped in. She started from behind. She knew Trump didn't fully want her. And from what sources close to the White House say, she spent most of her time trying to prove she was loyal, including reportedly putting a banner with Trump's face on the outside of the Department of Justice building. The Wall Street Journal said no matter what she did, it was never enough for him. Now, Jeffrey Epstein. If you need the short version, Epstein ran a network. He had powerful friends all over the world. Politicians, celebrities, billionaires. People who visited his properties in New York, Florida, and his private island. He was arrested in 2019 and died in his cell.
Now, I think most of you already know the entire Epstein story. If you don't, we have tons of videos breaking that down for you on the channel. But think of all of the people that are involved with Jeffrey Epstein, that's names were in those files. Pam Bondi, if she had all those names and someone didn't want them released, releasing her from that position could silence her in at least one way, but it also could allow her to open up her mouth and share a lot of the information that she has since she was no longer in that position.
The big question was always, who were the names? Who visited? Who knew? Who was involved? Congress eventually passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act. It gave the DOJ 30 days to release all the documents they had, everything. Bondi's job was to handle that release. She had millions of pages, and the whole country was watching. That's where things started to fall apart. The client list that wasn't. So here's where Bondi made her first big mistake, or her first big lie, depending on how you look at it. Early in her time as Attorney General, she went on Fox News, and she said, on camera, in front of everyone, that Epstein's client list was sitting on her desk right now, and she was reviewing it. That one sentence broke the internet. People lost it, because a client list, a real one, would mean names, big names, the kind of names that could blow up careers, destroy reputations, and probably end political dynasties overnight.
And that list, she was saying, she stated on television that it was a thing. It was a factual, physical thing that she had. But did she maintain that position?
Everyone was waiting. Weeks passed, then months. Then, in February 2025, Bondi invited a group of MAGA influencers into the White House. She handed them binders, told them this was the first phase of the Epstein file release. Some of those influencers walked out looking confused, because the binders, almost nothing in them. Documents that were already available to the public. already printed, already seen. There was nothing new. And then, months later, Bondi's own Department of Justice released a statement, July 2025. And it said, and I want you to really hear this, the review of the files found no incriminating client list. There was no list. She went on national television and said it was on her desk. Her own team later said it didn't exist. So now you have two options. Either she was lying when she said it, she made up the whole client list thing to buy time and look good, or she was told to say it and then told to walk it back.
There's so many moving parts here. It's really hard to pinpoint what the actual truth is because it's not just her. There's so many people around her that are influencing the decisions and also influencing what she's saying to the public. It's not like it's just coming straight from her. There's a team around her.
Someone above her pulled the rug. Neither option makes her look good, but they're very different problems. Tens of thousands of videos, and then nothing. But the client list wasn't even the biggest claim she made. This one is worse. June 2025, Bondi is talking to reporters at the White House, and she says the FBI is reviewing tens of thousands of videos. Videos of Epstein with children. She said this clearly, on record, and then she said it again, a second time, once to reporters, once caught on camera talking to a stranger. Two separate moments. She didn't misspeak. Tens of thousands of videos, of crimes, sitting in FBI hands.
Think about what that means if it's true. That would mean the FBI had direct evidence of crimes involving real people sitting in storage, people who visited that island, people with money and power and connections. And Bondi was saying the government had it all on tape.
And the question many people would ask, and many people are saying, and what's making so many people upset at this point in time is, why is all of that evidence and all of that information being hidden? Why isn't it being released? Why is no one being held accountable for all of that? And I think the answer is fairly clear because a lot of people that are high society people, people in power, people that are just very rich celebrities and more are within those files and guilty of many crimes. I mean, this could be, as we stated at the start of this, how it's taking down governments, this could be detrimental and have some crazy, insane effects on our government.
People were stunned. Lawyers who had worked on the Epstein cases said they'd never heard of any such collection of videos. They had no idea what she was talking about. 1 week later, Kash Patel goes on Joe Rogan's show, and Rogan asks him about the videos. Patel's answer? Something like, if there was video of someone committing crimes on that island, and I'm in charge of the FBI, don't you think you'd be seeing it by now?
You know, you have the director of the FBI on this show saying there's no, if there was, nothing you're looking for is on those tapes. Like, what? Why did they say there was thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible shit? Why did they say that?
Right.
Didn't Pam Bondi say that?
He didn't just walk it back quietly. He basically said, the videos don't exist. The FBI director and the attorney general just publicly contradicted each other on one of the biggest shows on the planet. One of them is lying, or both of them are confused. Neither is a good answer when you're talking about evidence of crimes against children. Joe Rogan loses it. So here's where Joe Rogan enters the story in a real way. Because Rogan wasn't just a viewer watching this mess unfold. He had Kash Patel on his show. He heard the contradiction firsthand, and he did not let it go. A few weeks later, Rogan is doing an episode with Danny Jones, and he goes off. He pulls up an AP article about Bondi's false claims and starts reading it out loud on air. And he stops midway through because he can barely believe what he's reading. His words were basically, they said they had videotape, and then suddenly they don't. Why did they say that? Why would anyone say that if it wasn't true? And then Rogan said something that stuck. He said, or they just bomb Iran and everybody forgets.
Now let's stop for a second and just think about the recent things that are being said and that are being threatened right now. A lot of this stuff is coming to fruition. Now, you bomb Iran and everyone forgets because you make decoys. It has been stated that these types of things would happen to take the eyes off of all of the crimes and put them onto something bigger, like a war. Is that actually happening, or is it coincidence?
That was his theory on why the Epstein story kept getting buried. Something bigger always comes along to wipe it from the news cycle.
Right.
And he wasn't wrong. Now fast forward to April 2026, right around when Bondi gets fired. Rogan is even angrier. He says on his show, "None of this is good for this administration. It looks terrible for Trump." And here's why that matters. Rogan is not a Democrat. He supported Trump. He had Trump on the show. When Rogan says something looks bad for Trump, that's not politics. That's the audience Trump was trying to keep turning on him. The influencers, the podcasters, the people who helped build the MAGA movement online, they were frustrated too. And Bondi was the face of that frustration. She was the one who made the promises, and she was the one who kept failing to deliver. Congress drags her in, she gets fired first. Here's where the timeline gets uncomfortable. March 17th, 2026, the House Oversight Committee issues a subpoena. Pam Bondi must appear for a deposition on April 14th and answer questions about the Epstein files.
Right, and this is something that so many people are looking forward to. She's going to finally have to take the stand, finally have to speak on the files that have been sitting on her desk for over a year at this point in time. Finally, answers are going to come. Right?
2 days later, March 19th, Bondi agrees to meet with the committee voluntarily, but behind closed doors. No cameras, no transcript. And when Democrats walked out of that meeting, they said she wouldn't commit to answering basic questions. She wouldn't promise to comply. And that wasn't even her first round with Congress. Back in February, she sat in front of lawmakers for 5 hours. 5 hours of back and forth. She refused to talk about Trump's connections to Epstein. She wouldn't acknowledge the victims by name. And when Republican Representative Massey told her she was responsible for the mess, she called him a failed politician with Trump derangement syndrome. So you've got the subpoena sitting there. April 14th is the date. And then on April 2nd, 12 days before she was supposed to testify under oath, Trump fires her. 3 days. That's how close she was to that deposition chair when she got let go. And here's the thing, it didn't make the subpoena go away. Republican Representative Nancy Mace told Axios immediately after the firing, "My subpoena still stands." Lawmakers said they would force Bondi to testify even as a private citizen.
Wow.
So the question isn't whether she'll have to answer eventually. She probably will. The question is, why fire her right now? Why not wait until after the deposition? Unless the deposition itself was the problem.
I actually am going to disagree and say we are not confirmed that she's going to have to say anything. Think about the files that were released a year and a half ago. They were told that they had 30 days. It's a year and a half later and everything still hasn't been released because so many of the files are still hidden, and the ones that are released are so heavily redacted, it's very difficult to get some true information. I don't think we can confidently say that she is going to have to take the stand.
Why Trump actually fired her. Let's talk about the official version of why she got fired, because there's actually more than one reason floating around. Sources close to Trump say his frustration had 2 separate tracks. Track 1 was the Epstein disaster. The missed deadline on the 30-day file release. The millions of pages that came out with so many things blacked out that they were barely readable. Both Republicans and Democrats were angry about that. And then the client list lie. And the videos lie. Each one made Trump look like he was hiding something, even when the problem was actually that Bondi was saying too much, not too little. Track 2 was completely different. Trump wanted his political enemies prosecuted, fast. He wanted criminal charges moving against the people he didn't like, and Bondi moved too slowly for him. He posted on Truth Social that he was tired of all talk and no action. It got so bad that when the DOJ tried to build a case against Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, their own attorney stood up in court and admitted there was no real evidence of any crime. In open court, the DOJ said there was no case. That's your own lawyer saying you have nothing. She was trapped in the middle. Too slow for Trump, too protective of powerful people for the public. She couldn't satisfy anyone. And she was the second woman fired from Trump's cabinet in just a few weeks. Kristi Noem, who ran Homeland Security, was let go in March. Bondi followed in April. Both women, both gone within weeks of each other. What's still being hidden? Here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. Even after all of Bondi's releases, even after the Transparency Act, even after all the press conferences and the binders and the Fox News interviews, CNN reports that 2.5 million Epstein files have still not been released.
That's absolutely crazy. That's a ton of files. And again, the ones that have been released, so heavily redacted. And who knows if the ones that were released were the less incriminating ones. maybe the ones that are still being held are the ones that truly show all of the crimes.
That's roughly half of the total documents the government has. Half. Gone. Locked up somewhere. And nobody has explained why those specific files are being held back. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries put it simply, what are you hiding? If you have nothing to hide, prove it to the American people. Rogan said basically the same thing on his show. How come all of this is not being released? His theory, Hollywood elites and powerful people have been silencing this story for years, and the government is helping them do it. And here's the wild part. Even people on the far right were calling for Bondi to be removed before the firing actually happened. Tim Pool, Nick Fuentes, Kyle Rittenhouse. They all said she needed to go. They wanted the files. They wanted the names. And she wasn't delivering. Now she's gone, and the files are still half locked. And the person replacing her, Todd Blanche, now acting Attorney General, is Trump's former personal defense lawyer. The man who spent years keeping Trump out of trouble is now running the Justice Department. So let's go back to those two theories, because now you have more information. If you believe theory A, that she actually had the names and was about to expose them, then the timing of the firing makes sense. She was days away from sworn testimony. The files are still locked. She was replaced by Trump's personal lawyer. Every piece fits. If you believe theory B, that she was always just bad at the job and making things up, then the firing still makes sense. She embarrassed Trump. She cost him credibility with his own base. She made Rogan angry. She lost control of the story from day one. Both theories explain the firing, but only one of them explains why 2.5 million files are still locked.
My question to you is, how do you feel about Todd Blanche now being in that position? Trump's personal lawyer that had protected him for years. Do you think that is an appropriate position for someone of that status? Whether it is or whether it isn't, the truth will come out, and we will know at some point in time what actually happened.